welcome to the next edition of Ready and Willing podcast. And today we've got Joe Platt, who's the MP for Leigh and Atherton.
That's right.
Me and Joe go back a long way, so it's really good that I've got Joe on here to have an open and frank conversation about what's going on across the country, but also in the borough itself. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Very apprehensive there, because
yeah.
shows we go back. One of the reasons we're doing this podcast is about, we've chatted about social media and kind of the impact that has on people. I want this so people meet the people behind the kind of facade of everything that goes on. So, so people can see you as the person. We've known each other quite a long time. Yeah. So you came into politics 2017 to 2019?
Well, yeah, but obviously, as you know, I was a local councillor before that. So the local politics was where I was. It was a great springboard, if you like, then obviously becoming the MP in 2017. Yeah. So 2.5 very short years. And then the people of Leigh at that time voted, obviously a different way. And then back again in July 2024.
So, quite an interesting time. Actually, you did children's services at the council. We sat next to each other, had plenty of banter and lots of work going on there. And as you say, it was a short period, 2017 to 2019. A lot going on in the world at that time, a lot of going on in the country, and a change of tact in Leigh. One of the things that stood out to me, and we had conversations about how you stuck with it. You could have easily said, well, that's me finished now, I'll move on. But you had that decision to carry on.
Oh, Chris, that was so important because it's devastating, when you lose a seat and, a lot of it's out of your control. Yeah. Obviously, national politics takes over. And when it came into 2020, the end of 2019, obviously, that's when the election was, 2020, and that reevaluation, do I want to carry on in politics? I think politics is something that never leaves you. I think it's an inbuilt thing. But then again, it was still important for me to continue to work in Leigh, to try and make that difference. And as you know, I went into the community and took a role managing a regen project at Spinners Mill, Leigh Spinners Mill, which I did then for 4 years. I call it my sabbatical. So in between being elected between 2019 and 2024, the sabbatical years, they are known as. But it was great. Again, it's something that, you could reconnect with the community and make a difference.
What about your family? Because Natsy, your daughter, who was a photographer at one time, we'll not go on about the photos she took. We'll not go there. How old is she now?
Lily is 20. Okay. And I know that you're a fan of Australia because your daughter is in Australia. Lily is there at the moment. Okay. She's on her 6-week sabbatical, travelling around Australia at the moment. They grow up too fast, don't they? But she's doing really, really well. So she's sort of gone through all those political stages with me, bless her. And but she's now off in the big wide world.
I think as a family, and actually we know each other, your family goes through that political stuff with you because you're brought up with it, whether you like it or not. Your family's brought up with it, and the pitfalls and the stuff that goes with that. So what about the rest of the family? Naturally, Lily's a big part of it, naturally.
Yeah, so I mean, Oliver, he's a little bit older. He's 22 now, so he works in Wigan again. Finding his way. And I've got a stepson as well, which is keen. He's 20, and it does have a massive impact, Chris. You're right. Basically politics, and especially when you're elected as a member of parliament, it takes you away from that family life. So having to, squeeze in Westminster and the constituency, because obviously when you come back to the constituency, that work doesn't stop. And then obviously your family time is just so important. And even though they're a bit older now, we still have to have that responsibility and that connection. It's even more so important.
Yeah. I suppose one of the questions I've asked other people on these podcasts is, Nancy, you're the MP for Leigh and Atherton. Yeah. But Nancy, down in Westminster, you've got the Westminster bubble, where it's different. It's probably focusing on what you do here and what you do down there and the priorities. I know the priorities are for Leigh, and we see that weekly. How do you kind of divide that kind of?
It's so difficult. And again, my sabbatical years, going back to that, again, that grounding and reconnecting with the community has been brilliant to then readjust some of my priorities. Now I've gone back into Westminster. So going back to the Spinners Mill, there's 80 businesses in there, and the majority of them are from the creative industries. So, visual artists, there's a cinema there, there's theatre production, and all these amazing industries, which just shows that we've got the skills and the talent here. They just needed the space. So for me to take that message now back down to Westminster, and I know obviously we've got the amazing Lisa Nandy, who's the culture secretary as well, and taking that message to say that opportunity should be for everybody. It shouldn't be that you have to go to London to acquire the skills or work in London, because that's where all the jobs are. They can be here in our areas, such as Leigh and Atherton and the Wigan Borough as a whole. So for taking that message down there, I'm on the select committee for culture, media, sport, so I get to challenge Lisa Nandy. I know, very, very odd, because she's got the same vision. It's about opportunity for all, and it's something that's drove my politics for an awful long time.
So naturally, that's something I cover at Wigan anyway. So I'm sure we'll all be having them discussions at some point.
Absolutely.
With that. And it's all quite interesting, isn't it? One of the things that stood out to me, and you'll know this, that's in politics. You'll see Prime Minister's Question Time. It's a battering kind of thing that everybody's having a pop at each other. In 2019, or should I say, when you've just got re-elected now, you was very gracious to James Grundy, who kind of won the seat in 2019. And I've heard that comments of thanking him for what he did. It would be easy to go, he did rubbish, he did not, and I thought that's the bigger person to me, being quite honest.
Oh, without doubt. And when James got the seat, I knew that he had that constituency in his heart to do something and to change things. Just because we have different politics and how we go about that, that's a conversation, is it? But as a person, he really wanted, to make things better. And we're not always going to agree politically, but, James is a good person and he did his very best, in tough, challenging circumstances. They had COVID to deal with. Obviously the start of the Ukraine war. So there was, difficult challenges that particular government had. Them challenges are continuing in different ways as well. And there's always going to be that. But I think the person that represents the seat is just about trying to do the best for whatever you can. But going back to 2017 and 2019, it was such a difficult time, Chris. I wanted to talk about the issues that mattered to the constituency at that time. And for me, it was about opportunity again. But there was one issue that dominated that time, and it was the Brexit. Brexit word that nobody mentions anymore. No. It's still there.
Can't find anybody who voted for it now.
No.
Nobody will admit to that.
No, not at all. So so it does, and it changes. So the challenges that are going on, internationally now, look what's happening in the world that are going to affect us all. How do we still navigate what we need to do to change things locally to make people's lives better, and that's a challenge as an MP.
I want to say a bit of a thank you. It'd be unusual me for thanking you, won't it? But when the levelling up money came in through the last Conservative government, coming to the end of that, a lot of promises made about levelling up money, a lot of stuff said about Leigh, Ashton, and everything. And then when you got in office, and that's we just chatted with Dave Molyneux, there was no money there actually. Yeah. So it was like frozen. So it looked like we was freezing that as a Labour government. Yeah. And I know all the MPs, yourself, Lisa and Josh, went in there and said, these things need to happen. Yeah. So it's a thanks, because people won't know that. They'll just think it's continuation. It could have ended.
Oh, absolutely. And and people don't see what you're doing in the background when you're down in Westminster. You do have a lot of meetings, but lots of them meetings are about the importance of, particular types of funding that you've just mentioned, Chris, because they are, they're the bits that are going to be able to change, what we see, if it's derelict high streets, how we revitalise that money's really, really important. And you're right, it wasn't there. So we had to fight for it to be there. So we're anything like that, it's how we as politicians work together. Local authority, you say, we need this money. Right. We'll go down there and say...
I think it was as bait as well working together, wasn't it? As a council and MPs working together.
And it just shows them what you can do when we do that and we work together and we push for what's needed and for what's right,
Because regeneration is needed in Leigh, isn't it? Yes. Majorly. It's been talked about for many, many years. and people are now looking like it does really need regeneration, and I know you're going to be pushing that.
Chris, it is high on my agenda. So my office, constituency office, is based on the high street. So I see every time I'm back in the constituency the day-to-day problems and what we need to do. I think one of the issues is we've got a lot of derelict buildings with landlords that are absent. They don't probably live locally, and they've just let these buildings go to rack and ruin. So for me, it's pushing the government. How can we take them buildings back into ownership? So one of the schemes is the UK high street rental auctions. So again, working with the local authority on how to do that. But I think what I've tried to sort of picture, going back to the mill project, we've got 80 businesses in there, and they're only in that mill because it's cheap rent and there's no non-existent business rates. But that's 80 businesses that could be on our high street, you know, so we could have like the creative industries or independent retailers on the high street if the environment was right. So we know we've got the will and the skills and the talent. Is how do we get them from the mill onto the high street? And then, you know, we've got a 40 business waiting list to go into the mill. So, you know, they're the new intake into the mill, and just have that circle of economy. But a thriving high street and a thriving town, which is what we want to work to.
Lee's been different, hasn't it, to Wigan?
Yes.
Over the kind of shopping, because Lee's never had the big shops.
Yeah.
So when the big shops have disappeared from Wigan and other big towns, that's not really affected Leigh. But shopping habits totally changed. You know, people talk about social media, online shopping, and it's about the niche shops, and it's about moving with the times, because a lot of people on social media will go, there's no shops.
They want a Primark. It's a Primark. Everybody wants a Primark. Honestly, if I get a Primark in Leigh, that'd be it.
You've done it. Yeah. So it is a change in phase of shopping, and that's what will come with the levelling up and doing it, won't it?
Definitely. And I think, you know, going back to, you know, we're not probably going to get, you know, the huge high street names back on in Leigh town centre, but we could have, you know, some of these industries that, you know, locally that, you know, represent the creative industries, or independent retailers, you know, crafters and people that make stuff independently. They're the, you know, that's the stuff that I think we could have. But as I said, we've just got to make that environment right for them to be able to move into there.
So I think I'm really proud, because Nazi as a Labour authority, and we see authorities all over the country kind of going through difficult times, if you like. We've always stood fast at Wigan and worked together. So the MPs have always worked together. Got Andy Burnham as the mayor. So we've really got a strong foothold there of everybody kind of pulling together, and you can see things are going on. And I think 27, 28 is going to be a massive time. The levelling up in Lee's going to do. Leigh Sports Village is massive, and the things that are happening there.
Amazing.
It's really exciting times, isn't it?
It is. The other thing that I want to push for as well, because I think it is lacking in Leigh, is transport connectivity. And we've got the amazing guided bus that when Andy was the MP for Leigh and I was a councillor, we really pushed that. But I think we need to go further. Again, you know, if we're connectivity, if we've got growth in other parts of the region or the borough, we need to be able to get to it. So it's another big push from me. I've got, actually next week I've got a transport debate on Wednesday, and I've labelled it transport connectivity for the Northwest, so it brings all our colleagues in. But I think that's the other important bit, and I've spoke to Lisa about this, and I've spoke to Josh about this as well. How we connect to each other is just as important. So even if we're putting it in Leigh, that means that we're able to maybe reduce congestion for Wigan and for Makerfield. It's about us all working together to get the best connectivity, whilst we connect to growth, but obviously bringing people in, being able to bring people into the constituency as well.
I think for yourself, naturally, you'll go down London Monday, come back Thursday, whatever. So it's a long time. So there's a lot dependent on your office, isn't it? And I know you've got some really strong people in that office now, and I've heard some of the stuff, and I know the people you've got working in there. So people who are experts on benefits and all that stuff. So I think that was a real key. I think that was a master stroke, if I'm being quite honest. Won't often praise you for master stroke.
I know. But I'm so lucky. I am so lucky. And I'll name her, Tracy.
Yeah,
she's phenomenal. And the amount of flowers and chocolates that she gets because she's helped people. And that's the point of the constituency office, isn't it?
I've worked with Tracy for many years. She's dealt so many people across this borough,
Yeah.
and passionate. And when she rang me when she got the job, and I was like, well, that's Jo's kind of game. I don't know if she's worked that one, but she did it. So it's good. I know you got Paul in there. And you got a team, a really strong team who are working for that.
Yeah.
Because naturally, like I said, you're down in London, so you need that strong team up here, really. And
it's the having the sort of voice, the eyes and the ears whilst you're not there, and that is so important. And you know, because you can lose that connection to the constituency. I feel fortunate that I've just had that 4-year sabbatical where you picking up the issues and things that you need to sort of challenge. I've got a big long list that I'm working through of what we need to do. But again, whilst you're not there, all the sort of day-to-day issues that, the team pick up, they're so valued. And I think they are undervalued by, people who just see it as that's the MP's office and it's just me. It really isn't. It does take a village. It's so important and so integral to how we, how we represent people.
So going back to kind of the social media stuff and people knowing that you're a real person, because people don't see that.
I know.
People don't see that behind the scenes. They see Joe Platt as the MP, as this person out there. We're real people. Real people with real families, real issues. And I think people should remember that when they're doing social media. It's like, this is real people, and it can hurt people. It
does, Chris, and I think it's really changed. So from when we were, when I was first elected, 2011, 2012, social media didn't have the prominence that it does now. We did things on social media, obviously, but to what and how you have to report things as a politician, because if you don't, people will say you're not visible, you're not there, because a lot of people spend so much time on it. But with that comes this, this abusive nature of of politics in a way. And I'll say this, I'm not being party political because it goes on all sides.
It does,
I was on Sunday Politics last week and was speaking to the Conservative chair of Filed at local authority, and he said exactly the same. The hate that comes on their pages, and there's something wrong, I think, there. We really need to change that because, like you said, behind the label of an MP is an actual real person with family who live in the constituency, who can see everything that's being written. So the fact that you can sometimes become hard to it, because you can't let it get to you. If you did let it get to you, you'd be, you'd be upset every day. But the impact that it has on them, it puts people off. So my children would not go into politics whatsoever. They say, why would I? Look at all the abuse that you get. And that's not right. And I think we need to change that. So when young people are looking at being a politician and getting involved and trying to, wanting to help locally, we need to change that perspective of what it's like.
I think that's been a theme. Spoke to a few politicians and leaders, and that's Andy's been on and Davey's been on, about that kind of social, and really people are going to make them comments, they should have their name on it. There should be some accountability, and there's some legislation needs changing, and so that's probably is a job for you down in Westminster. And I think it would be an open door. There's too many people hide behind that kind of, the facade of I can say what I want because people don't know who I am.
And I think really important to say, I absolutely wholeheartedly would welcome people who disagree with you politically. That is politics, isn't it, Chris? And we're used to that. That's part of being a politician. I think it's where it gets personal and abusive, and I think that's the bit that absolutely needs to change. So you're right. I think we need to be pushing the social media giants on how we do that, and it's going to take a lot of force to do, but we'll just have to continue to do it. And I will say, look, I know you'll be interviewing Josh on a podcast, and we had this conversation in Westminster just this week, and he said that he can see that me and Lisa get it more than he does. And is it a gender thing as well? So all these things that we absolutely just need to keep pushing back on.
I think just before we finish, I suppose moving forward to Leigh and Atherton and the things, what things have you got coming up? What for people of those areas will be saying? What's next?
I am really fortunate enough to have been asked to go on the Police and Crime Bill Committee. So it's a big chunky piece of legislation that we're putting through Westminster at the moment, and it's about documents about that bit. So I've not got through it all. But listen, it's basically going through that line for line. And already I can see some of what we're proposing as a government, how that will change what Leigh Town Centre looks like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ASB. And people are saying to me that they're scared to sometimes come into the town centre. We've got to change that. Again, having an open and welcome town centre and place is really, really important to people. People need to feel safe. And where I went to the Leigh campus of Wigan and Leigh College, spoke to some students, and they all said the same. Sometimes they don't feel safe going into the town centre. So legislation like that, for me, is a real game changer. Putting that into practice, more police on the street, and having a healthy and vibrant town centre is really important. So for me, that's the biggie.
It is massive, and it's important to people. And I think as an authority, naturally, we've never closed any gyms, we've never closed any libraries, so we've kept all those. Leigh Library, and I know you've supported this fully with the staff, he's out there as a country leader at the moment. I met with the Arts Council, and they can't believe the stuff that we're doing in there. We've had concerts in there. We had a punk rock concert in the library, which has never been known of. We had a comedy night. We're going to have some wrestling. There's because we can move all the shelves over and make a real big space in there. I think it's showing that to continue as libraries, which is important, and the Turnpike is really phenomenal for Leigh. He's keeping that up there and everything going on.
So second priority, if you were to say what's your number one, obviously the thing that's coming up with the police and crime bill, but two is the culture that we have in our towns. I've worked with it for 4 years, Chris. It is so rich, and how we build and develop that is how we're going to create that vibrancy for the constituency. That opportunity for young people, it just feeds into so much. But you're right, we've got so many amazing assets in Leigh and Atherton: the library, the town hall, the archives, the mills that we've got. It's really rich, and it's a canal network. I spoke in Parliament about that yesterday. So it's just our rich history and heritage, which is how we future-proof it and use it for the future. And I think that is another thing that I'll be absolutely pushing.
And I know we've spoken about LSV, which is phenomenal. But going a bit further into Atherton, the nightlife in Atherton is vibrant.
Goodness.
And
Chris, I wish I was young again. So honestly, it is. Tilsley's the same. This, so you can see where some of the regen and some of the investment that maybe the last government have put in, the For Tilsley, the HAS scheme, these things really, really can change, the outlook of a town. Atherton is amazing, even for just going out for a meal when you're old like me, and not doing the big nightlife. But no, it's fantastic.
I look forward to you taking me out for a meal. Is that an invite?
There you go.
Is that an invite?
I'll invite you. Some wonderful places to eat.
So I think the future's quite bright in them areas. There's lots of work to be done. There always will be. With never one where you can sit back on your laurels. But I think it's vibrant. I think people, hopefully, they'll see this podcast and see the real Joe Platt. They see you as a person, as a nice person. I know you anyway. And that's lots of work going on in the office, and you'll do whatever you can. So thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Really
I'll pay you later for that comment as well. Thank you.
You definitely will.
But thank you so much, and thank you to the college as well. Thank you.
I would like to welcome Lewis, who's going to ask Joe a few questions. Hopefully be kind with her.
Don't worry.
Over to you, Lewis.
So you mentioned a lot of the large challenges that are in the area. What are some other ones which Leigh's facing, and how are you planning to tackle them?
I think when you're looking at casework, it really does sometimes depend. So if there's any sort of government changes, you can get an influx of casework. But I think probably the second most bigger bit of casework is anything that's related to entitlements and benefits, people that are struggling to get them. So what the office does is they're equipped to deal with that, or if it's something that they can't deal with direct, there obviously is signposting for the support that we know that's within the constituency. So that's probably one of the main other issues. The one that is policy related, and people get really shocked at this, is that people really care about the environment locally. So we get, environmental issues, we get climate change, protecting wildlife, green spaces. A lot of people do email on a policy level with regards to that, because you wouldn't naturally think that with we're a sort of post-industrial Leigh and Atherton town. But people really do care about the environment. And I think some of the office were quite shocked, saying, we've got quite a high number of sort of policy asks and questions with regards to that particular issue. So you do get a mix. So it could be casework that people are contacting you for, or they want to know what your stance is on a particular type of policy. So, but other issues in the area, ASB, again, relating to sort of the crime element that we spoke about earlier with Chris. NHS challenges as well. Obviously, we know that there's struggles within that. So yeah, it can be a real hive of activity, but good to know what the issues are, so that it's something that you can take down to Westminster and start to challenge.
So you mentioned earlier about there's often switching between like parties and stuff. How do you often like work with other parties to kind of get a goal?
Do you know what? There is a huge misconception that everybody knows what Prime Minister's questions is like on a Wednesday. You've got two sides, and there's booing and baying and all this noise. But in reality, you really, you can work together on lots and lots of different issues. So, on the Conservative side of the benches, there might be somebody who has a particular interest that you are passionate about. One of them that I'm working on at the minute, I'm a chair of an all-party parliamentary group, so there are other ways of working together, but is ME and long COVID. So I chair them to APPGs. So you're working cross-party on issues such as that. And there are experts within the other party that have, a wealth of knowledge on navigating some of them systems. So you work really closely in lots of environments. The other committee that I'm on a select committee, which is the Culture, Media, Sport Committee. And again, that's cross-party. So again, how we work together. The chair of that committee is Caroline Dinage, and she is Conservative. She's a Conservative MP. She's amazing. She's great. She's fantastic to work with. And I think this is the misconception that you are, you don't get on, and there is no way that you can agree. There is always, I think I'm the type of politician to know and want that there is always a middle ground. And even if you don't agree on how to get there, you're always wanting the same outcome. And it's having that respectful conversation to be able to do that. And I think both sides sort of respect each other when that happens as well. But I think that's what probably as politicians, and maybe what Westminster as a whole needs to bring out. Because going back to what we were sort of saying about social media and how nasty and aggressive and abusive that can be, if people actually saw politicians working together in that light, does that help to change things? So hopefully that's something that
probably something that I was very similar to you about that, and I've not been down Westminster for many years, but they've got a bar called Strangers Bar there.
Yeah.
And that's it. I went in there as a councillor, not as an MP, so it's kind of different world. But you've got people sat at tables of all parties, having a beer, having a chat.
Yeah.
And when I actually said it, I was surprised that what goes on behind the scenes is that people are all sat down chatting. When you see the show going on, the Prime Minister's question time, looks like everybody's at war. But clearly behind the scenes, they just want the best for their constituency.
Yeah, and you get it. And, there's lots of instances where you do work together, on different bills. And, and you see it now on the Conservative side. Not everybody will be agreeing with their leader. And similarly, on our side, you'll always see, respectful challenge to maybe something that you don't agree with. And that's healthy. That's politics. Yeah. And I think we just need to bring that out a little bit more. But but I think that's the job that we've got to do as politicians. And we have as well, we have a really good relationship, obviously, because he's a good old northern man, which is Lindsay Hoyle, which is our speaker. And I think he's very aware of the security risks and how they've heightened, and how we are able as politicians to all come together to sort of, change, recognise the security risks and why we're having to do it, but how we change that as well through political discourse. I think that's what we all need to work to, definitely. But yeah, PMQs and some of the debates, it's very much theatre. It really, really is. And there's some brilliant actors in there.
Yeah. So you were an MP before.
Yeah.
And you had some time off it and then came back.
Yeah,
so
she lost.
I lost, yeah.
So what did you do in that time when you weren't?
Yeah, I just was speaking to Chris about that before, and it was, I call it the sabbatical years. And I worked at, I was employed as the general manager of an old cotton mill. Where the upper floors were just derelict. So it was about regenerating that and repurposing it for businesses to set up. And what happened then was all these amazing, wonderful, creative industries that have popped up. It's just phenomenal. There's a sports floor as well. So sorry, when I say creative, there is an amazing sports floor. So there's like archery, there's table tennis.
Bit of
there's
everything,
gym.
really,
Oh,
isn't
there is everything. Lots of independent retail. So there's a vinyl record store. I'll do a plug, Sticky Black Tarmac. But he's young. He's under 30. And such an entrepreneur. So he's not just a vinyl record store. He puts folk nights on and other events. It's just a phenomenal space. But I don't think they would have been able to do it if the rent wasn't. You're in an old crumbly mill, so the rent's very cheap. But I don't think they would have been able to do it if the rent was high or the business rates were high. So I think what it's done is brought all these people that had ideas, or maybe that they were inexpensive units in the centre of Manchester. It's brought the Leigh folk, because predominantly they're all from the area, into a space to create, and it's a wonderful thing. So I managed that for 4 years. I make it sound so easy. It really, really wasn't, and it was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done. And I always say, if I can handle the politics in the mill, I can handle the politics in Westminster. Honestly, it was but just so rewarding to see 80 plus businesses in there now. There's a waiting list of 40, and just thinking of all that opportunity that's creating, and not even just for the people that are doing it. There's Bedford High School next door. Them young people can see what's going on in there and think, do you know what, theatre production, that's something I can see. It's happening in the old crumbly mill next door. Is that something that I could do? These are the things that I think, create that aspiration and opportunity, which I think we need to push more.
Yeah. That's all my questions.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Thank you. Honestly, it's great. It's just fantastic to be here, and just the sort of involvement from young people and the questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you for answering. I found that really interesting.
So it's a big thanks to Joe. Thanks to Lewis for the questions. Thanks for everybody behind the scenes here. This has been Ready and Willing podcast, and look forward to the next episode.